Hello and welcome to the Interpreting Wine, Drinks and Hospitality podcast. I'm of course your host and podcast founder, Lawrence Francis. Across 8 episodes welcoming you to the Austrian wine producing region of Wagram. While I've covered several Austrian producers on the podcast, this is the first series featuring a deep dive of a single region, with all the episodes recorded with producers in Wagram in September 2019. In their own words, they'll introduce you to the geology, the history, the local grape varieties, winemaking styles, and of course, wines of the region. All of the producers are at least organic and some are biodynamic. And interestingly, many of these wines are not yet available in major overseas markets. And where producers are seeking representation, I've included details in each episode. So without further ado, here's today's episode of this Wagram special. Today's episode of the Wagram special features Bernhard Moritz of Weingut Fritsch. Another multi-generational producer with winemaker Karl Fritsch at the helm. We hear Bernhard's origin story and introduction into the winery. He talks about the transition to biodynamic and what it gives the winery, before tasting 5 of their wines. Enjoy.
So hello, this is Bernhard from the winery Fritsch. I'm really proud to welcome Lawrence today in the winery to tell him something about the winery, to show some wines, and yeah. So just from my person, so I'm since 2009 in the winery. I'm responsible for sale and marketing. So the main part is definitely sale in the winery. And the history, why did I come to the winery? So in 2006, I met Karl Fritsch Jr. He's the owner of the winery. And at this time I worked for a small distributor in Austria, in the middle of Austria, and it's called Oberstockstall. And sometimes I traveled around with Karl, and I was really impressed by his wines and his philosophy. And in 2009, I called him and said, "Hey, Karl, is there a possibility to work for you? Because, I'm really fascinated by your wines and your philosophy." And he said, "Okay, let's talk about it." And definitely we started in 2009. And especially the first 2 years, I always spent some days, some weeks in the vineyards, in the cellar, because it was really important for me to learn more about the wines, for sure for the Biodynamic, because in 2006 Karl changed to the Biodynamic, and that means since 2009 all the wines are certified in the winery. And so it's quite important for me to know really more or less all about the vineyards, the vinification. So it's quite easy for me to explain the wines, the philosophy for the customers. So up to now, we decide always together what we are doing, what we harvest, at what time we harvest. If we plant the wines in the cellar, we decided always together, because he says, you have to sell the wines and you have to be 100% behind the wines. So it was for me a really fascinating time, the last 10 years.
It's super fascinating to hear, getting sort of, I guess, drawn towards what was a passion and, what was an interest, and obviously then making this your kind of main focus. I do just want to sort of, I guess, ask you just to reflect back on that kind of transition period, because I think that, the 06 to 09 period where, Karl had sort of, I guess, made that decision and had made that transition over. I mean, could you maybe just talk to, I guess, where we are, where we're sat here? Were there any particular challenges in terms of taking what was at the time an established vineyard, an established property, over into biodynamics?
I think there are 2 reasons for the change. One reason was, so in 2005, Karl Fritsch met some colleagues like Bernhard, Hannes Hirsch from Kamptal, Veltliner also from Kamptal. And they tasted some wines and spoke about the wines, and they said, what can we do that we can show more character, that we can really show the terroir in our wines. And so they tasted some wines from other European or organic biodynamic wine growers from all over the world. And they've seen that it's definitely easier to show the terroir, or probably more the fingerprint of the winemaker if you do it in a biodynamic way. And for sure, the second reason is definitely the change of climate. And so nowadays we can see that we can harvest earlier with a physiological ripeness, and so we can keep more acidity, more elegance, more freshness in our grapes, berries, and therefore, probably we can show more elegance and more the character, the terroir, and especially on the Wagram region where we are located. So the region is famous for loess. Mm-hmm. And loess is definitely the best soil for Gruner Veltliner, because Gruner Veltliner is a variety which needs perfect water supply. Otherwise the wines get stressed, therefore you lose the fruit, the elegance, acidity. And so it could be the key for the future, the biodynamic, to be a little bit earlier. So if you look back to 17 and 18, we have seen probably what we can expect in the next century or in the next decade in terms of climate change. And so it could definitely be a success for us to do it in another way. Now we start our tasting, and in the Weingut Fritsch, the focus is absolutely on Gruner Veltliner, so a little bit more than 60%. And the first wine which we taste and talking about is our entry-level, basic wine. It's the regional wine. It's called Wagram, Gruner Veltliner. So this wine should show the character of our region. So our region is dominated by loess. The soil which we're talking about is perfect for Gruner Veltliner. We have perfect water supply. And with loess soil, you always get special character. That means you have always a good creaminess on the palate, yellow fruits in the nose, on the palate again, and the wines show always a little bit smoother than if you would compare it to other regions. And so this is definitely less character in this wine. And so the regional, the basic wine is the most important in the winery, because I think it's easier to do a high-end Gruner than a perfect entry-level Gruner. So, and this wine is the calling card for us. And so I think if a customer is tasting the entry-level wine and he's surprised and happy with the basic wine, he will probably taste also the next step. And so this, therefore, we have we try to do a really good entry level.
The depth really is surprising. Again, I've tried a fair amount of Gruner Veltliner in my time, and depending on the region, it's different. I think it is a grape that does express its terroir very well. And here, there is so much depth. I mean, it is almost surprising that it is an 18. So it is still a young wine. It's as you say, on the nose. There's so much fruit there. There's a real persistence, I would say. There's a real length here and a real depth, really, to the wine. Yeah, and I just think, it's just interesting, I think, to see, firsthand, a lot of what you've been speaking about there in terms of the practices about what that can actually give you in the glass. It's really interesting, and I for one am also looking forward to trying some of the others just to see what else we're going to find in the glass as well.
So we were talking about the depth of the entry level wine, the basic wine. So I think there are two reasons for the good depth in this wine. So since 2008, we just do the spontaneous fermentation in the winery. We know that it's quite tricky sometimes and not so easy. But we think you get more character, more depth, and so spontaneous fermentation takes always a longer time. So therefore, we stay longer on the lees, and if you stay a long time on the lees, you get the depth. So now we have the second wine in the glass. Again, Gruner Veltliner. It's a single vineyard wine. The wine is called Ried Steinberg Gruner Veltliner, again from the vintage 18. And the reason to show this wine is that we have not only Luss on the Wagram, so we also have some special vineyards where you also can find more minerality. Especially in the Steinberg, on top we have again Luss, like the whole region. And in deeper layers you find slate and granite in the single vineyard Steinberg. And therefore you get really special character. So like in the first wine you have more fruit, it's a little bit smoother. And with the second Gruner, you have much more minerality, spiciness, herbs, flowers, herbal notes. And so this character you get due to the soil there. And it's also a quite important wine for us because this is always on a quite high quality level for us. And it shows each year the same character, and with the wines there are 35 to 45 years old, so it's a very important single vineyard for us. And so the challenge for the Carl Fritsch or the winery is to show the terroir and to taste the terroir, and so that's the reason why now we taste the Steinberg.
I don't need to add masses there because I think you've done a very good job of describing the differences between the two wines. I'd really just kind of emphasize the point I made earlier there. I don't think in all the episodes that I've done I haven't spoken. I'm not sure that any of my guests have really spoken so much about the possibility of Gruner Veltliner to express its terroir in that way. I mean, I think I may have been mainly tasting Gruner Veltliners from similar terroirs with one producer, but what we've got there in the glass is kind of living proof, if you like, that you're going to get, a very different drinking experience. Everything you've just said, it completely changes. It really does get a different structure, a different kind of minerality, different mouthfeel, different finish. Everything kind of changes. But I guess as well, nice to have the two in your arsenal, because you could easily get a bottle of each. They're different enough, aren't they?
So the last Gruner Veltliner, the third one in the glass now, is our Ried Schlossberg Erste Lage Gruner Veltliner. The vintage is now 17. So the Erste Lage wines are or the high-end wines in the winery need always a little bit longer to show the elegance or the quality. So 17 was like 18, a warm and dry vintage. For us, a little bit better than 18. And for Schlossberg, we are also using the big barrels for the vinification. If you compare it to the first both wines, to the classic wines, where we're using just stainless steel tanks. So for Schlossberg, it's important for us that we have micro-oxidation to get more balance, more depth again. And so Schlossberg is always for a long aging. That means we have Schlossberg back to the late 80s. Sometimes we show vertical tastings of Schlossberg to show the customer which potential Schlossberg has. So we have the oldest wines on Schlossberg, 55 to 60 years old. And so the soil on Schlossberg is up to 20 meters, only less. Therefore you get really good creaminess on the palate, exotic fruits, and good minerality in the back, because you have also a little bit particles of limestone in less. And so I think it's a really elegant wine. And yeah, so that's, I would say, high-end Gruner from our region.
Again, my observation is, again, I think just about the theme running through here for me is just, again, Gruner's ability to just, express what the winemaker has chosen to do with it here, because I think then I'm tasting and I'm just sensing the word you use, elegance. I think that's really expressing that time in the barrel. It really just feels a much more put together wine. All of the edges are sort of coming off here. You're getting that minerality certainly coming through. It's expressing that, and then it's also expressing that creaminess, that fruitiness, but all just sort of just more in tune with one another. And as you've sort of just alluded to off mic, really, these have got great aging potential.
The next wine is quite special for Austria, but this wine or this variety is quite famous for our region, for the Wagram region. It's a Roter Veltliner. It's a white grape, a white variety. So somebody meant it's a family of Gruner Veltliner, but it isn't. So it's really special and unique, and there's nothing common with Gruner Veltliner. So that means all the conditions which are perfect for Gruner Veltliner are not perfect for Roter Veltliner. It's definitely the opposite. And so Roter Veltliner doesn't have a really long tradition at the winery Fritsch. So it's new experience since 2012. That means we have planted 1 hectare of Roter Veltliner in 2012 and 13. That means the first harvest of Roter Veltliner was in 2016. And now we taste the third vintage of Roter Veltliner. It's 2018 in the glass now. The wine is called Roter Veltliner Unfiltered. So the wine stays 1 year in the barrel. So it filters by itself. We were talking about, and so the vinification is also a little bit different to Gruner Veltliner, because for Gruner Veltliner, for the fermentation, we use only stainless steel, and for Roter Veltliner, for the fermentation, we use a big barrel from acacia wood. So it's quite neutral, or more neutral for us than an oak barrel. And we also do a skin contact for 30 to 36 hours for Roter Veltliner to get a little bit the tannins, to get again more grip on the palate, And it's for us, it's especially a perfect food pairing wine. It shows a really special or its own character, and it's completely different for us to Gruner. And it's also quite difficult to grow it because it's a thin skin, and it's like a little bit Pinot Noir. So, but yeah, in our region, I think it's necessary to have it and to show it. Yeah. So the last wine in our tasting now is Pinot Noir, white Pinot Noir. So we love Pinot Noir, and we think that Pinot Noir works pretty good in our region, in our area. So if you have a look on our planet, you will see that the Burgundy is nearly on the same latitude than our region. So therefore, we have really a good experience on Pinot Noir. And today we taste our Pinot Noir P, so that's our high-end Pinot Noir. We also do a entry level, but now we taste the Pinot Noir P from the vintage 2017. So Carl Fritsch Senior planted in the early 80s already Pinot Noir, and so we have older wines here, 35 to 37 years old now. And so the philosophy for all the wines in the winery, and especially also for Pinot, is first we want to show the variety, the grape, the soil, and the vintage, and not the vinification style, oak or what else. So in this case, we do the fermentation in open vats, and then we age the wine in used barrels, oak barrels, 500-liter barrels. We never use new oak for our Pinot. I told you the philosophy. First, we want to show the elegance, the fruit of Pinot Noir, and so therefore always used barrels for Pinot Noir in the winery. And so this one is probably a little bit young, but it shows a lot of elegance, freshness. We also have good acidity in our Pinot, and we think, Pinot needs also acidity like a white, because Pinot lives from elegance, fruit, freshness, and not from richness, I would say.
Yeah, you're nailing these descriptions because I think it's a really spot on description. I think it's really showing what it has to come. I agree. It's all of those things. It's very it's quite vibrant. I would say. I think right from the color, actually, in the glass, it's just got this lovely transparency. It's just really shining out of the glass here. But yeah, as you say, this will just go on and go on and on, and just developing that elegance. And yeah, if any wine, you can sense the touch of the winemaker. I think here you can very much sense a very light touch. That there hasn't been, the winemaker wanting to put a big stamp on this. It's just, as you say, expressing what the fruit is and what the region is giving to that fruit. I think it's just really for me to say a huge thank you. I really enjoyed all of the wines. I think I really enjoyed the descriptions that you've given. I think they've been spot on, and having seen them and walked through the winery and seen some of the vineyards here myself, I can definitely get that sense of place coming through in the glass here. And so just finish off really, just ask you open-ended question. Just to sort of, I guess, look ahead in terms of the winery. What's the sort of direction, I guess, that's being set, that the kind of the path that's being plotted. And maybe just say something about the markets. I guess in your job, you're out there in the markets quite a lot, speaking to your customers all over the world. So give us a sense of what's going out there in the markets and where these wines are being enjoyed.
So if we look a little bit in the future, so we want to bring. Actually, we sell our wines. Mostly 40% is in the domestic market, only for restaurants, hotels, and so on, and for sure a little bit for the private buyers or customers. And so I'm traveling a lot, and the main markets in export are Germany and US. I think probably we will not grow in these countries. Probably in the future we can go to the Eastern European, to the Eastern countries. So actually we are not really represented there. The Scandinavian countries are not so easy for us because there's the monopoly, but we also sell our wines in the Netherlands and Belgium. So these are good markets for us because a lot of Belgium and Netherlands people come to Austria to spend their holidays, and they learn more and more about the Austrian wines and they love it. So I hope probably in the future we will can show our wines again in the UK. So actually we don't sell the wines in the UK, but everybody wants to be in the UK and it's not so easy. But probably if you hear the podcast, you want to learn more about Fritsch and taste them. Yeah, so it was really a pleasure to have you here, Lawrence. Enjoyed the hours with you and the tasting, and hope to see you again soon and taste again some wines with you, and enjoy the stay in Austria the next 2 days. And it was really nice to have you here. Thank you.
Many thanks, Bernhard. Great to meet you, tour the winery, and of course taste the wines together. Do see below for website, social media handle and contact email for Weingut Fritsch. And while you're at it, head to interpretingwine.com/listen to subscribe to the podcast. Next time in the Wagram series, in episode 336, I head to Weingut Schuster. See you then.